Hi, everyone, and welcome to Curator Chats with the Museum Center at 5 Points. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Hope.
And you may have noticed that one member of our team is missing today. Elijah has left the museum and moved on to bigger and better things, I hope. But you will still hear him on our podcast. We do record our podcasts about a month in advance, so he's going to be on the next, I think, 3 podcasts.
Yeah, I think it's 3.
So you'll still be able to hear him on our podcast for the next 3 times. Then for a while, I think it'll likely just be me and Hope for a little bit. So as the whole world kind of gets on their feet after, well, during COVID-19. So today our subject is historical mysteries and conspiracy theories. I think this is some of our favorite things to talk about in the office when we're in the office. Hope definitely, I know she has a lot to say on this topic. So I'm going to open it up with the question, how do you feel about conspiracy theories? Like, specifically historical conspiracy theories,
Well, I think that, I enjoy them. I think they're fun. I think they're fun to, read about. And I think some of them are really interesting. I think some of them have, a lot of things to back them up. So you almost think, maybe that could have been the real way that it happened. And then I think some of them are just wild. And I just want to sit down with the people and be like, how did you come up with this? What made you think this? I think some of them are a little bit far-fetched. Some of them could very well be an accurate depiction of something that we're just not being told about, because I think we've mentioned that before, that history isn't always two-sided. And I think some of them kind of tie into the modern world a little bit and kind of interesting and fun ways, but I'm definitely not sure that I believe all of the ones that I'm going to talk about today. So.
Yeah, for me, I feel like conspiracy theories can be fun and interesting to learn about, but I feel like they become dangerous when people start to believe them over real history. And I'm not just talking about things where we're not sure, but when more people believe that the moon landing was faked than, people believe in climate change, that's crazy to me. And I think it really skews perceptions of history, and it kind of makes history retold, though in other cases I think they are valuable. For example, we found out a lot later that Martin Luther King was pretty much being harassed and watched by the FBI. They told him to kill himself. There was actually a letter written to him that was released later by the FBI where he was encouraged to kill himself or else his infidelities would be revealed and things like that, because he was a bit of a womanizer. He had affairs. So, it was conspiracy theories that kind of pushed this narrative where we finally started getting some truth. And that was a lot of stuff that happened during the Vietnam War, too, is a lot of these conspiracy theories when it actually came to light that they were true. So in some ways, it causes us to examine history and events in a different light. But in other instances, it teaches us false history, essentially, and more people begin to believe in a false narrative of history than the real narrative of history. Granted, you could argue with me that about the moon landing or whatever, but essentially there are a lot of things out there that are conspiracy theories, and I go, no, we know the answer to that. Please stop. You're just, You're creating this wrong narrative. So I have a love-hate relationship with conspiracy theories. I think they're interesting, but I think they can be very misleading.
And if they spill over into the real world, especially with the prevalence of the internet now, conspiracy theories abound on the internet. And if they spill over into the real world, they can cause dangerous things to happen.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really where it gets pushed too far. I think that you can be entertained by anything, but once it takes over your life, so to speak, it becomes problematic and it becomes dangerous. And you should really like think about the things that you read on the internet not being 100% factual. Like you can write anything on the internet.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. All right, so what are some of your favorite historical mysteries and or conspiracy theories?
Okay, well, my favorite, like my absolute favorite conspiracy theory, which I have talked about 100 times, is called the Phantom Time Hypothesis. And if you've never heard of the Phantom Time Hypothesis, it basically says that today, right now, we are living in the year of our Lord, 1723. So this theory basically says that the Holy Roman Emperor, the Emperor of like the Byzantine Emperor, I think, and the Catholic Church worked together in order to ensure that, I cannot remember this Pope's name for the life of me right now. We're all ruling in the year 1000. So they basically skipped over like almost 300 years and just made up a bunch of history for that time period. So we're actually living in 23, I think it would be now. And like Charlemagne and a huge part of the Dark Ages were just like fake. They just made that up. And they say that because you can't effectively radiocarbon date to that time, that a lot of things from like the Dark and Middle Ages are like written because, you know, people write. Like monks and scribes and stuff would like write all this stuff down. And that's not like a good way to find your history, even though that's a primary source, but like, you know, whatevs. So I enjoy this. I think it's like fun, but I mean, the facts clearly like outweigh his ideas. The facts are basically like, they have writings that match up all of these like comments and all kinds of stuff. And a lot of it was basically saying like French history like would have been changed, but the rest of Europe didn't change to match it. It was very strange, but it's one of my favorite theories. I really enjoy it. I really like to think that I'm living in 1723 now. What can I say?
Okay, cool. I wonder how that holds up against like other groups of people who didn't follow that calendar.
It doesn't.
Okay.
At all.
Okay. I was like, because there are a lot of other calendar keepers, and I was just curious.
Doesn't add up at all. But I think he really took a lot of time to figure this out. But I heard about this one day, and I was like, this is my new favorite conspiracy ever.
That's a pretty good conspiracy. I enjoy that conspiracy.
I'm gonna create one similar to that.
I like certain things. So one of my favorite things to do is to debunk historical conspiracy theories, but one of the ones that I haven't found anybody actually debunking is the Voynich Manuscript. It's the book. I don't know when it's from, but it has a writing that's never been deciphered, and it's got all kinds of pictures depicting things happening in it. Like it's got pictures of plants, it's got pictures of, it looks like medical practices, but it's all of the script is in a language that has been indecipherable, is not like familiar to anything. It's just this manuscript, and I honestly believe it is from the time period they say it is. It might be the Middle Ages. But my hypothesis is that either we were being trolled by a monk, or there's this phenomenon, and I forget the exact name for it, but it's when somebody writes in an internally consistent language, but it's not a real language. There is a name for that phenomenon, and there is a person recently actually who does this, and he basically says it just comes to his mind and he just writes it out, and he sees it in his head and he writes it out, and it's an internally consistent looking language, but it's indecipherable. It looks like it's a real language, but nobody can figure out what it says. He doesn't even know what it says. It kind of comes to him and he just writes it.
That's
it's called something in particular, and back then they used to believe that it was like a language coming from God. Essentially, God was speaking through you, and you were writing, kind of like speaking in tongues, but in written. In written form. And there is a word for it. I don't remember the word. I tried to look it up before we had this talk, but I couldn't find it. So I think it's probably that, but I would love it if it was like a 15th century monk trolling us.
That would be that would be great, actually.
Because
except for he would have been the 13th century monk because it's 100 years. No, okay.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I as an archaeologist, I want to do that at some point. When I die, I want it to be a really confusing burial. I want some weird things to be buried with me. Just if anybody digs up my grave in 2,000 years, they're like, what is this?
They're just really confused, and they're like, wow, was she a queen or something?
Yeah.
Like, why does she have this like stuff? I really
as an archaeologist, I would love to troll people in 2,000 years. So maybe that's what he was doing. But it's probably more likely that phenomenon of writing in that. But at the same time, that writing, why would you, if you don't know what it means, why are you drawing pictures of like herbs and medical practices and stuff next to it too? I don't know. It could be a very clever forgery. I don't know.
That is really cool.
But I like that one because I haven't found a good explanation for it where it's been debunked.
I like that one too. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, I'll have to send you more about it. It's interesting. So my next question are there any mysteries that you love that have been debunked though? Like, are there, or even you don't love, but some mysteries that have been debunked that you'd love to talk about?
Let's see. Well, I could say that I'm a huge fan of things like the Roswell Crash, which I know.
Okay.
But I really enjoy it. I am desperate to go to Roswell, New Mexico. Like, I want to go so badly, and to Area 51. I'm that person. I tried to go to Area 51 when I went to Las Vegas, but I ran out of time, so, dreams crushed. But I really like that whole idea of, like, this happened and there's been this massive cover-up, because the Roswell crash is in, like, the 30s. And it's, like, this massive cover-up and everything. And, clearly they're like, it's a weather balloon. It's, it's nothing. And the government just kind of shut it all down. But, I mean, people are still talking about that. I just read something. I thought of this one because I just read something that said, like, online earlier today or yesterday, and it was like, the government has said that UFOs are real and y'all don't even care anymore. And I was like, wait, Roswell was real, wasn't it? We figured it out. But I really enjoy that whole, like, thing, because, if you, like, look on, like, Google Maps, you can't really, like, there are certain, like, no-fly zones. So it's like Area 51, Roswell altogether. For me, like, you can't, like, see satellite images of some of these places and everything. And I'm like, what is it? And you can't, like, the government or someone has, like, bought mountains, like, literally bought mountains around, like, Area 51. So you can't crawl up or hike up to the top to look down at it. What? Why? But, I mean, clearly, like, if you have, like, a high security military base, you can't just, like, look at it. And there are, like, no-fly zones in other places in the country that are the same way. I'm not sure if Barksdale Air Force Base, I used to live near there. It's in Louisiana. I'm not sure if that's, like, a no-fly zone, but it's, like, a super high security Air Force base. So, like, it's explainable, but I'm still, like, there's signs that are like, you get shot. And I'm like, why? Tell me why. Like, I want to go places desperately just to, like, have a wander. It's like, touch things. That's what I want. That's all I want. But I do like those theories. I think it's fun. I think people have just, like, crazy ideas about it. But that also goes back to what you said, where things become dangerous really quickly. So there's a video on YouTube of a guy, and he's like steals a sign or something from like Area 51, and people are shooting at him. And like there's all kinds of things where you can read about, like people will pull up and watch you in like black SUVs and just all kinds of crazy stuff. And but then like if it's just a closed, like if there's nothing there because they say it's not an active base anymore, like why? Just tell me why it matters.
Yeah.
But I do understand that like military bases do hold, like I grew up in a military base, like I get it. They have like high security stuff, but I'm just still like, but I think it's pretty much been debunked at this point.
Yeah, I would say I'm definitely interested in UFOs and aliens and stuff, but I don't believe.
Yeah, I just want to know the secrets.
Yeah, I think they've been pretty much debunked. The stories of little gray aliens with the big black eyes and the big bulbous head essentially came from a film. It might have been it was some sort of Hispanic film. I think it might have been in Puerto Rico. And then right after that film, people started reporting seeing aliens. I think this was in the 40s or 50s that looked like that. And then all of a sudden, everybody else started reporting aliens that looked like that. But before this, nobody had reported aliens looking like that or seeing creatures looking like that. It kind of became like mass hysteria on people, that pareidolia where you start seeing essentially what you want to see, recognizing faces and things that aren't there. I feel like that's been pretty much debunked, but I still gobble it up. Even though I can't hear you.
I said consistently.
Yeah. So I definitely enjoy reading about UFOs. Oh, something that fascinates me is the Men in Black phenomenon. Because, and I thought about this the other day, this is something that happened to me a long time ago. Well, I say a long time ago, maybe a few years ago. And I remember sitting in my car outside of a Joann's, and I was in there for a second, and I look over, and there are two men in black suits with sunglasses and the hats, and they were just sitting facing forward in the car next to me. And I thought, what are they doing? I figured they were government of some kind, but then I started learning about the Men in Black, and I thought, maybe they were Men in Black. You know, I didn't think about this incident, because at the time it bothered me. I thought they were government agents of some kind, but why are they staking out a Joann's? And then, or a Walmart, they occupy the same parking lot. Maybe they were at Five Guys, because this is a strip mall. But I just thought it was the weirdest thing, and then I started reading about the Men in Black a lot more recently, maybe within the past year. And just the other day, I was watching a Men in Black video, and I thought, maybe that's what that was. Except I don't really believe that.
When something happened a long time ago, and then like something jogs your memory, and you're like, I figured it out.
Yeah. I have no idea what they were actually doing. I don't actually believe they were Men in Black, but it was a funny thought that crossed my mind because they did fit that description.
They're like the worst secret agents that are staking out something, but super obviously. So
I know. I don't know what they were doing, sitting in the car, not talking, facing forward. I mean, I can't imagine they were pranksters waiting for somebody to park beside them and think it was weird and then forget about the incident for a couple years. You know, it's so actually, I don't know.
Agent, that's me, secret agent, just like with my like name tag that says like agent whatever on my chest.
But there are a lot of conspiracy theories that, like I said, it's kind of my thing for things that have been debunked. Atlantis was never real. It was a fictional city that Plato made up. The Shroud of Turin is a fake. It was dated to the Middle Ages. The crystal skulls, all were fake. Anastasia. Do you want to tell me that? I know. Anastasia did not escape. Her body was found alongside Alexei's. Amelia Earhart, they found a white female body I think it was a skeleton of her height on the Gardner Islands in Kiribati in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with circumnavigational equipment. What was that?
And like with like part of the plane,
Yeah.
and like a compass mirror and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So, but people still say she was missing, or who else what other white woman would end up in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on an island?
With a plane.
Yeah.
Or
So
parts of it, but yeah.
the Bermuda Triangle isn't statistically significant in any way. The Dyatlov Pass incident happened because they had a poorly made tent and there were high winds, so they sought lower ground for cover.
I love that one. Dyatlov Pass is one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's one of the ones where it creeped me out until there was another team, I think it was in the 70s, tried to recreate they followed the exact route, they made a tent the exact way, and during that time, and it was during the same time of year, and the winds got so high that it like collapsed their tent, so it was easier to just cut themselves out and get out, and then head down to try to find lower ground to get out of the winds. And there's just a lot of it makes sense. 2 of them were found with burns, but they were also the 2 that had tried to start the fire. There were high winds, and they tried to start a fire.
There's one that's similar, and I've heard it called the American Dyatlov Pass, and it happened like in California, and it's
Is that the boys
crazy.
from Yuba County?
Yeah, like that one is like dead creepy, like with all the food and like one of the guys starved to death, but that one
surrounded by food. Yeah, so the Dyatlov Pass incident I feel like has been debunked, but I can't figure out the Yuba County, whatever, the Yuba one. I can't figure it out.
The only thing I could think of was like, I wonder if it could be like fast acting drugs, like a drug that like leaves your system quickly, or something. But I don't know. That one's. The only thing
I could think of with the Yuba County, or is it city? I don't remember. But the only thing I could think of with that one is all of them had some sort of mental illness or disability. And I don't know the details on them, but I'm wondering, and this is just my like personal thought, is the guy who died of starvation surrounded by food, if he'd been taught that stealing is bad no matter what, maybe he thought it was stealing?
Yeah. I wouldn't have had that self-control, but like some people think differently, and especially if you have any kind of like mental disability or mental illness that could like skew things, it would be
Yeah, I think one of them had paranoid schizophrenia, but it was not him. Because every time I would watch something on it, they would talk about how he was the most high functioning of the group. He didn't have a mental disability, but he did have the mental illness of schizophrenia. But the one that was found must have been one of the ones with the disability. And if he had autism of some kind, especially, and he was told you don't steal no matter what, maybe he just wouldn't have stolen.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. That was yeah.
I watched like a video on that and I was like, oh no, like
So kind of going off of that, are there any historical conspiracy theories that you believe?
I believe the CIA killed Kennedy.
All right.
I do not believe that Lee Harvey Oswald made that shot. I believe that it was set up that Jack Ruby killed him. I believe that Jack Ruby didn't just die in prison like a year later and was like quickly cremated. Like I believe the cover up of the Kennedys 100%.
All right.
It's wild. But I just don't ever see it. Like I don't see like this situation playing out the way that they said that it played out. And then they said that Lee Harvey Oswald, or some things I've read say that he was like a great shot and everything. And then some things are like he would have never been able to do that ever. And so I've like clearly talked to my parents about this 1,000 times because that's just what I'm like. And my stepdad said that when they were stationed in Japan, they also tried to make shots like that with that same gun, and that it was possible, but that it was like difficult, which also has happened on TV shows. Like they'll have like a sniper or an expert marksman or something that is on the show be like, I can make the shot, and of course they can make the shot. But also the way that, like, if you see, like, the Kennedy skull and just, like, it just doesn't add up to me. And then I've, of course, been to Dallas and stood in the middle of the street and everything else because it's a thing. You can totally just walk out in the middle of the street. They don't care. Well, I mean, I'm sure they care, but there's nothing they can do about it. And there's, like, little X's in the street. I just 100% believe that the CIA or someone, like, up there killed Kennedy. Some kind of alphabet agency that maybe even one we don't even know about killed Kennedy.
Yeah. In a similar vein, and I think earlier I said FBI, but I'm pretty sure it was the CIA who harassed MLK. I'm not sure, I believe, and I forget his name, that the assassin who killed him actually did. Or at least he didn't act alone. And one of the biggest things that gets me there is Coretta Scott King doesn't believe he did it.
I actually heard someone was telling me not too long ago that there's a theory that said that he survived until they got to the hospital and was suffocated in the hospital as well.
James Earl Ray. If you go to the Wikipedia page, it says perpetrators James Earl Ray according to a criminal case. Like, it doesn't just straight up say James Earl Ray. It says according to a criminal case. I don't know. There's a lot of evidence either way, but the fact that Coretta Scott King doesn't believe it is something that's very interesting to talk about. Are there any other historical conspiracy theories or mysteries you want to talk about before we sign off today?
What about the Denver airport?
Oh, God.
I love the Denver airport. I think it's wild because so like that airport has been there for like, I don't know how long. I don't know when they built that airport in Denver. But like, if there really is an underground city under the Denver airport, it's had to be there forever. Like, it's had to have been there longer than the airport because they say that like this New World Order or like the Illuminati are like working from underneath this airport to like basically control everything in the entire world. But they also like say that they're responsible for probably all of the wars in the last 200 years. So like that city had to have been there. So I think it doesn't add up to that because I think that there's more to it, but I think it's fun. Like maybe there is, what is under airports?
Ground. Usually, I would imagine.
Well, I mean, like in Chicago, there's the subway, right? That's like where the L, you can get on the L in O'Hare. So, like, what's under the airports? Like, are there tunnels like at Disneyland? Like, can workers actually run from like one side of the airport to another side of the airport underground? And is that why people think that there's like cities and labyrinths like underneath these like buildings? Because there are, just like at Disney where there are, but they're not like sinister, they're just convenient.
Maybe so. I think the Denver airport is more just an interesting selection of architecture and choices that they made that people read too much into. I think it's weird, but I don't know that it's a signal of anything. But maybe that's what the Illuminati want us to believe.
That's true. Or maybe we're part of the Illuminati and we're just trying to throw you off balance.
That's true.
That's something to think about.
One of the biggest historical mysteries that we didn't get to mention today so far is Jack the Ripper.
Oh, yeah. I find him interesting.
I find it very interesting in that they're always, it doesn't matter. So I'm not big on Jack the Ripper. I think there are people big enough that they have a fandom name for them or a study name for them. I think they're like Ripperarians or something, or Riparians or some. I heard it once and I thought that was the weirdest thing. I'm not that kind of person, but if I see something pop up in my suggestions, I'll give it a listen. And it always seems like that each YouTube video that I watch has a little new tidbit to add. I think one of them said that there are over 100 suspects for Jack the Ripper, so that's probably why I hear something new every time I listen. The evidence is usually about the same, but the theories after it are always different. So that one's interesting to me because unlike a few of the other mysteries where it doesn't matter how much you watch of different, you can watch a whole bunch of different creators and channels and listen to different podcasts, they all repeat the same thing. But with Jack the Ripper, I think because there are so many theories and suspects that at the very least, every time you consume different media for it, it's always different. I think that's all we have on historical mysteries and conspiracy theories. This might be our last curator chat. We'll have to see and reevaluate. We should be going back into the office next week. But I don't know if this is going to be a continuing series, just not in our houses. We'll see. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for watching. And
maybe we'll see you next time.
Yeah, maybe we'll see you next time. All right, guys. Signing off. Bye.